Okay, so social mobile. So before we start, a little bit about Playfish, which is the company that I work for. We're a social gaming startup. Been going just over a year. All we do is social games. We've got 50 million users, 20 million monthly active users now, and we've got 6 games in the Facebook top 10. So we've like to think that we've been fairly successful on the traditional kind of Facebook applications on the web. As well as Facebook, we've also got a presence on MySpace and many of the other social networks. And we're looking to sort of branch out away from just the pure Facebook website. And kind of our first step on that journey has been to bring a game to the iPhone. Okay, so what does mobile mean for a company like Playfish? Traditionally, mobile games have been things like this, fairly kind of low-end, very polished, but very simple games, kind of 2D. This is what we call old mobile. Recently, we've seen some new platforms come out which have pushed things along a bit. So the iPhone, Android, the Google phone, and some other kind of more advanced mobile platforms. They're doing much richer content. Some of these games are really quite good fun to play, kind of full 3D, not a million miles away from what people are used to playing at home on their PlayStations. So this is brilliant. This is still not quite what we're looking for. We like to think about social mobile. So this is kind of combining the new mobile, the richer content, the more complex games with the social aspects that we've learned from Facebook. Okay, so Who Has the Biggest Brain is our first game. We've just launched it. You can see here on the right, this is the web game. It runs in Flash. That's just a screen grab from there. And the iPhone game as well. Okay, so what have we learned about developing for the iPhone as opposed to developing for Flash games on the web? The quality expectation is incredibly high. iPhone users expect things to be absolutely seamless and polished. So pick something simple and do it really, really well, rather than trying to have every single feature in there. In terms of the technical side of things, iPhone's brilliant for UI, but getting richer content on the device can be very difficult. So something we've struggled with is getting kind of Flash-style animated content to actually run as well as we want to on the device, but we think we've got that. And also the Apple App Store, kind of where you go on iTunes to buy the applications, they have a lot of policies that are quite restrictive, so make sure you check them before you do anything, because some of them can surprise you. And unlike normal Facebook applications, there's a very long lead time on making any changes. So you're looking at, from deciding to make a change, it's going to be at least 3 weeks before it gets out there to the public. So make sure you're kind of thinking well in advance and try and be a little bit clever about it. If you can make something dynamic and kind of server-based, it might be a good idea to do that. Okay, Facebook Connect is the Facebook API that I think Josh mentioned before. They've just launched this. It's a pure iPhone API. You can see here the login screen for that. Another feature we've just added to one of our games is the feed publishing. Okay, so the SDK supports login, it supports the feeds, a couple of other basic UI parts. You can run any SQL query that you want to. So it's very powerful for that. And it will also kind of manage your session and your login data. That still leaves you with a lot to do in terms of getting a social game actually up and running. But all the basics are there. And if you're familiar with developing web-based social applications, you should find this side of things is pretty much covered. And it's more a case of adapting what you already know rather than learning new stuff. Okay, so our philosophy, like our design philosophy when it comes to designing our games, and this is just what we think, this doesn't necessarily apply to everyone. We're trying to think about having one game and many different clients. So we think about the web application as being one client to the game. We think about the iPhone client as being, sorry, the iPhone application about being another client to the same game. So it's the same game. It just depends on where you are at that moment. Maybe you're sitting in front of your desktop, tapping away on the keyboard, or maybe you're on the train playing on your iPhone, but you're still playing the same game. So yeah, we prefer people to say, I'm playing Who Has the Biggest Brain on my iPhone, rather than I'm playing Who Has the Biggest Brain iPhone. So the main reason for this is because of the fragmented nature of the mobile platforms. Getting true virality is something that's yet to be achieved for a mobile-only application. Some people are achieving it by also having kind of smaller web presences, so having the entire application purely as a mobile app, but having maybe a high scoreboard or something like this, hosted on the Facebook web page to try and get a presence that way. We've kind of tried to take that a bit of a step further and get real integration between the game. So when you're playing on the desktop, and you're seeing your friends, your high scores, and all the games, then when you go to the iPhone, as far as possible, it's exactly the same experience. So any score that you achieve on the iPhone will get uploaded and will become visible in Flash. So this way you're playing with your friends who may or may not have an iPhone. So this is kind of driving up our virality factor, our alpha. Okay. Another thing that we're quite optimistic about with social mobile is a way to escape from the App Store, or more generally to escape from the problem of being stuck on operator decks, which is kind of long blighted mobile game development. So the App Stores, it's a brilliant marketplace. If you haven't ever used it, then check it out for an example of great UI. But there's only a certain number of slots, and there are there's a lot of iPhone games out there these days. So it's all about getting on that front page, getting into the top 10, and that's when you start to see your sales really picking up, traditionally. But we see social as a possible way of getting around that. So by using the social graph, we've then got another channel to get to users to distribute. So users getting a notification from their friends with a link into the App Store, that's at least as good for us as having the user actually see us on the App Store front page. In fact, it's probably better because a notification from your friend, you're very likely to click that link, download that app based on your friend's recommendation. But it's kind of too early to judge whether this is really going to work. I mean, the first Facebook connected applications have only just been launched. Some of them have been quite successful, but to what degree that's down to the connected features and virality, and to what degree that's down to just having a nice game in the App Store, is still open to debate. But we're quite optimistic about it, and we look forward to finding out. Okay, thank you.
Has anyone got any questions for Dan?
You mentioned at the start that you have the Facebook platform as the main place for your games, and you've also got Yahoo, MySpace, and the other ones. I was just wondering how many users you've got on the other platforms compared to Facebook.
Okay, I'm not actually sure what we've publicly released about our user bases. Facebook is certainly our largest user base, but we've got significant presences now on MySpace, where we've been around for a while, and we're growing as well on the others as well.
Okay, so would the others kind of altogether be equal to what you've got on Facebook, or still no?
I don't think we've talked about that publicly.
Okay.
If you go to our website, playfish.com, there is a certain amount of information about that kind of thing. Okay.
Sorry. So in your games online, on the Facebook thing, you obviously monetize through like offers and in-game ads and lots of other stuff. How do you monetize on the iPhone in your games, apart from just selling the app? What can you do?
Okay, so that's a very good question, especially at the moment. Selling apps through the App Store, the developer gets a 70% cut of that. It's becoming a little bit of a race to the bottom in terms of price point on the App Store, because there's so many applications now. So apps are getting down to kind of $1.99, $2.99. That's kind of quite high these days, and even below £1 even. With the next version of the iPhone SDK, which is launched to developers and the OS will become public in the summer, that will then support microtransactions. So payment through the App Store, but all from within the game itself or within your application itself. So that's just going to open absolutely everything up.
Any more questions? No? Okay, great. Thanks very much, Dan.